Alright, so today we are going to be playing through the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC only using Eternal Sleep. To answer this question, is Eternal Sleep any good? In order to do this, we will be killing every single boss in the DLC. We will be keeping track of how many bosses fall asleep, how many get Eternal Sleep, and how many are unaffected by sleep altogether. First off, what does Eternal Sleep do? Once an enemy is afflicted with Eternal Sleep, they stay in this state, well, forever? I think. I waited around for like 10 minutes. He didn't move, so I'm gonna assume it lasts, well, eternally. Now that you know how it works, let's begin the run. We create our character, choose the Wretch class to make sure that we start at level 1. The reason we are doing this is because Eternal Sleep is only acquired in the DLC, so we will be spawning ourselves into the DLC at level 1 with no weapons, no armor, just max potions and talisman slots. And we must gather all of our gear from the DLC. We pick up our Shadow Tree fragments. We grab the two-headed turtle talisman, we pick up the flame drake talisman, the outer god talisman, we shatter the golden rune to make our way to the stone coffin fissure to grab the weapon we will be using throughout this whole playthrough, the only weapon that gives eternal sleep, the velvet sword of Saint Trina. We then make our way over to the Bonnie jail to pick up the knight armor set. This will be our drip for the time being. We then pick up the pearl drake talisman, we then gather all of our smithing stones and get our sword up to +9, and most importantly, some much needed runes. These are our current stats, and now we start fighting bosses. How we are going to dissect this is we are going to go from zone to zone, starting with the Gravesite Plain, which will consist of the Black Jail Knight, the Chief Bloodfiend, the Demi-Human Swordmaster, the Divine Beast Dancing Lion, the Ghost Flame Dragon, Rolana, and the Red Bear. I'm going to be using the wiki to distinguish the bosses in each area to keep it simple, and our first boss on the list is actually the Ghost Flame Dragon. This is due to the fact that we want the Ancient Dragonstone. This fight is all done on horseback and is more tedious than anything. We are just running towards his feet, trying our best to dodge the Ghost Flame. We end up getting a poise break rather early, and at this point it was pretty apparent that the Ghost Flame Dragon does not sleep. Nothing much to say here, but we did get our Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone, so I do think it was worth it. After we upgrade our sword, we go grab one of the final talismans that we will be using, the Viridian Amber Medallion. Now, we needed to find a better way to put enemies to sleep, because sure, the sword is nice and does work, but I want results quicker. So we go pick up the Saint Trina Disciples Cookbook in the coast because it gives us access to eternal sleep pots. This will make finding out if bosses can sleep very easy. We will start out every fight by throwing as many pots as possible to see if the boss falls asleep. Now, we need to gather some resources to craft the pots. This is the only time we will be heading back to the lands between because we need ritual pots. For the actual materials, we need to find a grinding spot for both. One of them is in the coast. We will have to ride around and pick up deep purple lilies. They're easy to find near this big crater and they do respawn. You just have to take the long ride from the Grace back to the hole. The next thing we need is white flesh mushrooms, 2 of which spawn at this tree, so we simply grab them, run back to the Grace, and repeat until we have the desired amount. And I spent way too much time at this damn tree. From here, we decide to take on the Divine Beast Dancing Lion. This is our first remembrance boss of the DLC, so it's time to find out if it sleeps. And no. It does not sleep. So the first remembrance boss of the DLC in fact does not get even a little sleepy, which is pretty disappointing. We will have to take the beast out the old-fashioned way and just use our stubby little sword. As you can see, the Velvet Sword of Saint Trina doesn't do a lot of damage. Even with my Shadow Tree fragment being +14 and the sword being +10, it is only cracking around 500 damage a hit, which is very weak in comparison to most other weapons at this point. It means we will be struggling a lot more than I would like to, but besides the damage struggle, there isn't much to say about this fight. It's a very standard beast fight with us going for jump hits as much as possible to try to break the poise of the lion. We end up taking him out after just a couple attempts. I did it! We decided to jump immediately into another remembrance boss, Rolana. Let's find out if she can sleep. We instantly can see that she is a sleeper. Although this is not eternal sleep, as I would have liked, it is sleep, and it will be crucial for winning this fight. We will always try to have Mists of Eternal Sleep active, as it adds even more sleep buildup on our sword, which is super handy in a fight like this, because we can chain our sleep procs into poise breaks, into more sleep procs, making it so Rolana doesn't have much time to get up. We get her into phase 2 rather quickly, and when we do, we toss a sleep pot, and this really messes her up. Just watch this chain reaction. she gets slept instantly, which cancels her phase shift, allowing us to do a lot of damage because she has to redo the whole animation. We get her to the 3 moon attack, and I messed this up. After all this time, you would think I would be able to get it down, but we all have bad days, alright? I wanted to finish her off while she was asleep, but didn't get to, unfortunately. But we do end up taking her out regardless, giving us our second remembrance boss, and a rather sleepy one at that. Now, it's time to upgrade our armor. As nice as the knight armor is, it's not that great for the DLC, so we make our way over to the Black Jail Knight, which has a nice set of armor for us. We start off by using Mists of Eternal Sleep and just stick on him to deal as much damage as possible. After a little bit of combat, we back off and throw a pot to confirm that he does in fact sleep. Regular sleep will do just fine here, especially with there being no poise breaks on this fight. Sleep comes in clutch, allowing us to deal lots of damage in short successions. This fight felt especially good to bully as I struggled so much against him in my first DLC playthrough. We defeat him and get our new armor set, meaning we are no longer squishy. We will not be equipping the helmet though, as I have a secret helmet that we will get way later in the run. Next stop is the Rivermouth Cave. I actually missed this cave entirely in all of my playthroughs, so this was my first time ever fighting the Chief Bloodfiend. We throw a couple of pots and no sleep. Very sad, but cool fight. I did struggle as I never have experienced this moveset before, but besides that, not much to say. On to the next one. The Bellerot Jail. We make our way down to Swordmaster Ons, and we throw a bunch of pots. Again, no sleep. Ons is a pushover. As much as I love his moveset, he is very squishy, so it doesn't take much to take him out. On to the final boss of the Gravesite Plains, the Red Bear. We make our way up to the Northern Nameless Mausoleum and start out the fight with a pot and Mists of Eternal Sleep, and just like the other Mausoleum NPC, he also goes to sleep, which is a good sign. This means I will be able to bully him with jump attacks and sleep procs. Still yet to find someone who can eternally sleep, which is unfortunate. This boss is very aggressive though, and it forces me to lock in. I rely mainly on heavy attacks to stun lock him as he has a lower poise. The one move I always have to watch out for is his big bear head, but besides that, he is not much of a threat and we take him out quite easily. That concludes our first zone, the Gravesite Plains. There were a total of 7 bosses in this area, 3 of which could get regular sleep, 4 of which could not sleep, and 0 of which could eternally sleep. So far, it's not looking good for eternal sleep. On to the next zone, Scadu, Altus. We have the Black Knight twins, Count Ymir, the Curse Blade, the Death Knight, Dryleaf Dane, another Ghost Flame Dragon, the Golden Hippo, Messmer, Mater, Rakshasa, Jori, Ralva, and the Tree Sentinel. Sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. Now, from here on out, we will be ignoring repeat bosses as we will get the same results. For example, we will be skipping over the Ghost Flame Dragon and all other Ghost Flame Dragons in this run. For our first boss, we will be going for the Golden Hippo for the fragments. We throw pots and learn that the Hippo does not sleep. So we take this fight how I normally would, prioritizing poise breaks, only doing jump attacks or heavy charged attacks, and it is so easy to abuse on the Hippo. I've never really struggled on the Hippo, so not much to say here. Thanks for the fragments. It really does suck he doesn't sleep though. I think that would have been a very funny visual. Next on the hit list is Black Knight Edred. We throw our pot and he sleeps. Not eternally, we are still on the lookout for that, but he sleeps normally and he does it pretty consistently. It doesn't take much to put him to sleep and we take him out with no problem. But we can't fight one without the other, so now it's time for the Black Knight Guru. Before we get to him, I'll showcase how good eternally sleep is just for traversing the land. I can put all of these guards to sleep and never have to worry about them again. They just lay there, incapacitated. Now onto the boss. Just like his other half, he does sleep very easily. So this was a first for me, and I did not expect that Yoshi tongue trying to scoop me up. I found a little cheese with this guy. As he's falling asleep, I can sneak up behind him, go for a backstab, and abuse this as much as possible. We throw pot, backstab, repeat, which takes him out rather quickly. Next, we make our way down to the Bonnie Jail to face the Cursed Braid Labyrinth. He falls asleep rather easily. Just like the last guy, we are going to be abusing the backstabs as they just do so much damage. It turns out sleep is really good for backstabs. We took him out very quickly, no problems here. Another sleeper agent down. The Death Knight is the next boss on the list. We head into the Fog Rift Catacombs, we throw our sleep pots, and it turns out he does sleep. He just has a higher resistance. So it takes 2 whole pots to put him to sleep instead of the preferred 1 single pot, but he does sleep. Just like the other 2 bosses, we are going to be abusing backstab. This guy is even more prone to backstabs, as when he is dashing towards you for his big grab attack, you can punish him with, you guessed it, a backstab. So this fight consisted of a lot of backstabs, but we take him out. Next boss, which is none other than Dryleaf Dane. He moves a lot, so sleep pods were a bit hard to keep him into the effect, as he's constantly throwing flying kicks at me like Liu Kang, constantly dodging and overall just running a lot. It's a bit annoying, but we find out due to just attacking him that he does fall asleep. We don't do anything special here. We just treat this as a normal fight with the addition of sleep, and we stay attacking until we take out Dryleaf Dane. Now it's time for a little bit of a detour to visit Jory. They are constantly attacking when you enter the boss room, so we start the fight off with a backstab. We hit the Ash of War, and there it is. They have little to no sleep resist, as it only took us one Ash of War to put Jory to sleep. I think we had a total of like 7 sleep procs during this fight, which is far more than any other boss we end up encountering, which I found very interesting. I think it's because they're reused as normal enemies, but it has proper boss HP, so they're just way more tanky than the other normal bosses, but have no resistance. I just thought that was neat. With Jory defeated, we move onwards to the Red Bear. We throw our pots and... Oh. Eternal sleep. Oh my god. What does this mean though? Okay, it's like it gives me this. Will that just wake them up immediately? I think so. I didn't think we were gonna find one. Can I just beat up on her? Let's get this guy out of the way. I don't know who you're standing all tall and proud like. Dude, our sword does nothing. But can I just beat up on her? Will she wake up? And if so, how many hits? That's actually a good amount of damage. That's so cool. Oh, I'm so happy. I can't believe we found one that did. Oh, and because it has the whole falling animation, if I'm just hitting the whole time... Wow. Wait, that's actually so strong. Oh, wow. That's awesome. There it is! Our first Eternal Sleep proc. We're finally on the board. Now, let's see if the Tree Sentinel is a disappointment. He does fall asleep, but sleep functions actually better than a Poise Break. Normally, a Poise Break on the Tree Sentinel gives us one hit where he jolts back into action, but when the Tree Sentinel is asleep, you can just keep swinging. You get like 5 hits before he's back to normal, making this fight very, very easy. I'm just glad we're not running into as many anti-sleepers. And once we take out the Tree Sentinel, we go pick up the Golden Braid because we're gonna need it for our buddy Radon. Next on the hit list is another remembrance boss, none other than Finger Mommy. We test the waters and she does not sleep. Womp womp. So now it's time to get good. We just have to fight her normally. Design-wise, this is one of my favorite bosses. She's just so cool looking, especially with Phase 2. I think her and Midra are my favorite DLC bosses. They both just look so cool and I just wish I knew more about her. I need to catch up on my lore for the DLC bosses. There's no special tips or tricks for this boss, just react accordingly and eventually you'll get her. I didn't struggle too bad with this one as it only took 4 attempts, but we do take her out. RIP Finger Mommy. Because we did that, it upsets Ymir, who praises the fingers, and he loves to teleport around, making this fight a tad annoying. Luckily, he does fall asleep, making it a little less painful, but regardless, once you have him backed up against a wall, he will try to teleport backwards, but because you know he's up against a wall, he's unable to make it out, making him a very easy kill. Snooze. Rakshasa. I hate this boss. She hits like a truck, and sure, we do have the added bonus of her being able to fall asleep, but that's our only savior in this fight. I died to this fight probably the most. I think Radon was the only other boss to kill me this much in this challenge run. Sometimes they decide they don't want to be staggered and just hits me with her Ash of War and I just die. I died to that attack so many times. I despised this fight, but in the end, we get the best of her and take her out. Now, the last boss of Scadu Altus. Everyone's favorite boss, Messmer. We toss our sleep pods and quickly find out that Messmer also doesn't sleep. Most of the remembrance bosses at this point have been immune to sleep, and it's rather upsetting that it's getting the Frenzied Flame treatment, so that leaves us with a standard Messmer fight. Just him and his 18 inches, and me and my greatsword. We get into phase 2 rather quickly, with us mainly going for heavy attacks. Once he was in his snake phase, it was a bit easier to handle. I genuinely think this phase is easier than the first phase. Most of the combo chains are very easy for me to dodge. Messmer is always such a fun fight, especially after a little break from it. It just hits really, really good. But he wasn't much of a threat even without our sleep, and we managed to take him out. Scadu Altus had 14 bosses, 9 of which could sleep normally, 4 of which are insomniacs, and 1 hibernating bear. Rauh Base. We have the Death Knight and Regalia. Now, I know that Rauh Base is just 2 reused bosses, and we said no repeats, but I am going to include the Red Bear because it is just super satisfying to see Eternal Sleep in effect. Dude, I didn't realize you could just keep hitting. I thought he would wake up. Does he not wake up? Dude. That's awesome. Okay. That's an interaction. Oh, I didn't get any runes from it. Okay. That could just be like seamless co-op bugging because I am on that right now. We had 2 bosses, one of which could sleep and one that could eternally sleep. The Cerulean Coast. We have the Dancer, we have the Demi-Human Queen, another Ghost Flame Dragon, and the Putrescent Knight. It's time for the Putrescent Knight. This boss is a special one because right behind this boss is Saint Trina herself, which gives us a questline that'll grant us a talisman that will buff our damage. The Putrescent Knight does in fact not sleep. This guy is up 24/7, doesn't know sleep. Even in his skeletal form, he's woke. So therefore, we will be fighting him the old-fashioned way with just our little stubby sword. He takes around 400 damage a hit, making this one take a long time. As you will see, that's a common theme on these non-sleep bosses. Because we don't get the whole purpose of the sword existing, we struggle with its mediocre damage. Luckily, I do have a good amount of experience with this fight and have learned to love it. At first, I was a hater, didn't like how he moved, but now it's one of the more fair fights. It feels like a dance. Some of the fights in the DLC don't feel this way, but this one does, and it doesn't take long to take out the Putrescent Knight. With the Knight dead, we can now get that talisman I was talking about. We just have to speak to Tullier and inform him of Saint Trina's existence. Then we must talk to Saint Trina enough time to get the cutscene. Then we can inform Tullier of her words. This will anger him as he believes he is the chosen one, which, you know, that's us. So we then rest at this grace and we have a duel. Tullier is a master of poison, but is no match for sleep, as he does fall asleep and overall isn't a tough opponent. Once we defeat him, we are rewarded with Saint Trina's Smile, a crucial talisman which will replace our Outer Worlds talisman. The Dancer is up next, and this is also a boss that I straight up missed my first playthrough. And just like all of the other Mausoleum bosses, she does indeed sleep. She doesn't seem to be very tanky with low poise, so we spam our heavies here to try to cancel her attacks. Sleep comes into play with how it normally would in these fights, just giving us a couple extra hits, nothing special, just another sleepy EP NPC fight. The final boss of the Cerulean Coast is the Demi-Human Queen. We toss our pots and yo, we have another Eternal Sleeper. Let's go! After figuring that out, I decided to put the whole camp to sleep so I could finish off the Queen. It's safe to say that when Eternal Sleep does work, it is broken. We had 4 bosses total, 1 could sleep, 1 could eternally sleep, and 2 could not sleep. Charo's Hidden Grave. We have the Deathrite Bird, the Lamenter, and Tibia. This area is very small with only 3 bosses, so this should go by rather quickly. The first boss we will be tackling is the Lamenter. We make our way over to the Lamenter's jail. We do our normal pot throwing just to find out he does sleep, but he still does teleport around, making a bunch of clones, so this fight plays out generally the same, making this a very underwhelming fight. We just dog on him and his clones until he perishes. Next boss is Tibia. We throw our pots and they don't sleep. We still kill Tibia and move on to the other boss in this area, the Deathrite Bird, who also doesn't sleep. Not much to say. This guy is hard. He has Ghost Flame. There's many enemies around him. It just sucks. But that doesn't stop us from taking out the Deathrite Bird. That concludes Charo's Grave, giving us 3 total bosses, 2 of which don't sleep and 1 who does. Jagged Peak. We have the Ancient Dragon Man, the Ancient Dragon Senesac, Bale, and the Jagged Peak Dragon. The first boss is going to be the Ancient Dragon Man. I'm looking a little different here, and that's because I killed him a lot earlier in the run before I pivoted to doing all the bosses. At first, I was just going to beat the DLC using Eternal Sleep, but then as I was progressing through the main bosses, I realized that not many of them were falling asleep. So I needed to pivot the video idea and decided to do this instead. The Ancient Dragon Man, thankfully for me, was a sleeper. He's very deadly as always with his potential one-shot moves, but the heavy hit combos which hit stun him and the sleep on top of that puts in so much work. You can truly bully the Ancient Dragon Man. Now that we know the Dragon Man sleeps, do the actual dragons follow suit? We start chucking our pots at the Jagged Peak Drake to no avail. Another non-sleeper. We still kill him. On to the next one. Senesacs. We throw our pots and they do not sleep. This is the only boss I just straight up didn't kill because after making this discovery, I died to him so much and got so mad and tilted that I left and never looked back. I don't regret it. This guy don't sleep. You can't lock onto his feet. He just sucks to fight. Frick him. I'm just gonna pretend they don't exist. Now on to Bale. The ordering I decided while scripting is quite funny because a little bit of insight behind the scenes here. This was the last boss I killed in the whole run. I waited until Radahn was dead to fight Bale so I could utilize Bale's super buff against Radahn, but just like all of the other important bosses, Bale does not sleep. And he was a difficult fight. I love Bale, he's always super fun to me, but I don't actually have the full fight from when I killed him because I had went to get food, I'd paused my OBS, came back, forgot to unpause it, so I killed him, looked over, and I was like, shoot, unpaused it so you'll be able to see me get the heart, but that's about it. I can show you like me fighting him but not winning, so I apologize for that. We did kill him normally, so I am very sorry. I'm sad, but there's not much I can do about it. We move on. Scaduview, the Falling Star Beast, Scadu Avatar, Commander Gaius, and another Tree Sentinel. The first boss we will be checking out is Gaius. I hate Gaius, but we gotta defeat him for the fragments that he loves to gatekeep. Once he stops his charge, we bombard him with eternal sleep pods just to find out he's just like the rest, and he doesn't need his 8 hours, which I was really hoping wasn't the case, as this is one of the fights I need help with. I have cheesed him so many times in the past and have only beaten him like once, legit. It was time to lock in and face my fears, fight my demons, and take out Commander Gaius with my little greatsword. Like most of the other Remembrance bosses, we will be relying on the charged heavies or jump attacks to get those poise breaks as soon as possible, but we do end up conquering our fears and taking out Mr. Hog Rider. We then grab our well-deserved Shadow Tree fragments and move on to the next boss, which is the Falling Star Beast, one of the bosses to return from the base game, and just like the base game, he don't sleep, but we kill him regardless. Now, time for the Scadu Avatar. Does not sleep and is a long fight, so here's me poking him a bunch. Boom, he's dead. That concludes Scaduview, one of which could sleep, which was a repeat boss, and the other 3 that couldn't sleep. Now it is time for the Ancient Ruins of Rauh, Dancing Lion, which we know cannot sleep, and Ramana. So that leaves Ramana, Saint of the Bud, who, yep, doesn't sleep. This video is getting long, so we won't be showing much of these fights. Just know it went like the rest of the Remembrance bosses. Just like imagine me saying like, jump it, over and over again until he dies. That's basically what happens here. But with Ramana dead, we can burn this little tree and reveal Enir-Ilim. But that is all for the Ancient Ruins of Rauh. 2 bosses, both of which cannot sleep. It is time for the Abyssal Woods, which only has Midra, the Lord of Frenzied Flame, who I have left until this point as they're one of the harder bosses in the game, and I already knew they wouldn't be able to sleep because Madness and Sleep both go off of the same stat, and as the outer god of Madness, I think it's safe to say that they're gonna be immune. I did a lot better than expected and didn't realize how little poise Midra actually has, because I was getting poise breaks a lot quicker than I have in the past, and just look how quickly we are breaking it. This fight was one of the harder ones in our playthrough, but a lot of that is attributed to the small arena we have to fight Midra in, especially when we get him into phase 2 when he's shooting his frenzy load all over the arena. But regardless, we do end up taking him out, and he is the only boss in the Abyssal Woods, meaning we just had one boss that couldn't sleep. Now it is time for the final area. Enir-Ilim has 2 bosses. We have Leda and the allies, and Promised Consort Radahn. And this first fight is the most unfair fight in the whole game. Leda and her allies. Now, for this fight, I didn't care. I used the NPC summon and I abused sleep. All of the NPCs could fall asleep, and it allowed us to get some free hits in most of the time. Some of the time you would get a sleep proc and the other would aggro you, so you couldn't really abuse the fact that they were asleep, which means the whole gimmick is kind of useless here. And that's part of the reason why I decided it was okay with using the summon. I also just dislike this fight the most and wanted it to be over as quickly as possible. Hornsent is the easiest of the bunch and the most fair, as it is a 1v1, well, for the most part, and Sleep comes in clutch here. But once Dane invades the world, I try to kite him and purely focus on Hornsent and take him out of the equation. Shortly after that, our friend joins us to help us bully Dane, and this doesn't last long before Leda pulls up, making it a 2v2. This is where it gets a little hard to manage everything and feels more like a clusterfuck than an actual fight. So I'm just hitting whoever's nearest and trying to keep my summon alive for as long as possible, because I want to try to make both of the NPCs drink their pots before they take out our summon. That would make it as fair as a fight as it can get. Once our summon dies, we are left in a 2v1 scenario, but just look at their HP. They are both very low, meaning I just have to run away from them, and once I get far enough away, I could just kite for my hit and repeat the process until they are both dead, defeating the NPC fight. This shit sucks. On to the final boss, Radon, who doesn't sleep. This fight was very hard fought battle with our puny little sword. I will simply let this one play out because I am very proud of this, and we will be back at the very end for our overall statistics. Oh, he's dead. I lied. I'm back to showcase this cute little flower that you get when you kill Radahn. You just go back to Saint Trina's dead body and look at it. We get a little reward for being a sleepy boy. Enir-Ilim has 2 bosses, one of which can sleep and one of which cannot. That brings our total to 43 bosses in the DLC, 22 of which cannot sleep, which means 51% of the bosses in the DLC are sleepless, which is kind of crazy. 18 of which can sleep, only one of those being remembrance bosses. So 41% of the DLC bosses can normally sleep, and 3 bosses can sleep eternally, which is approximately 6.9%. Overall, eternal sleep seems to be very lackluster. The concept itself is very unique, and when it does work, it is downright broken, but having it not affect over 90% of the bosses in the DLC seems to devalue it quite a bit, and overall, I wouldn't recommend going out of your way to try Eternal Sleep. It has potential to be the best status effect, but everyone is just immune. Well, that's it from me. If you enjoyed watching, be sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. It's been CurtisTheCactus, guys. Later.